The great hall of the Galactic Empire was filled with shouting voices. Representatives from 100 species argued with each other, their words echoing off the ancient stone walls. High Chancellor Morath sat on his throne and watched the chaos with cold eyes. He was Velthari, the same species that had defeated humanity 3,000 years ago. His ancestors had built this empire on that victory. They had written the history books. They had decided what the galaxy would remember about the humans. Now the humans had returned, and everything was falling apart. "We must attack immediately," shouted General Corax, slamming his fist on the table. "Before they grow stronger. Before they spread." "Attack?" replied Senator Myra, a Selvian diplomat. "With what? Our scouts report over 2,000 warships. We cannot match those numbers. Then we gather our allies. We unite the fleets. That will take months. The humans are already moving." The arguing continued. Morath listened to all of it, but his mind was elsewhere. He was thinking about the old records, the secret files that only the High Chancellor could access. Files that told a different story about the First Galactic War. A story his ancestors had tried, very hard to bury. The humans had not simply fled. They had made a choice, a sacrifice. But for what? "Enough," Morath said. His voice was quiet, but everyone stopped talking. "We will send an envoy. We will learn what the humans want before we decide our next move." General Corax looked angry. "Chancellor, with respect, we cannot show weakness. Understanding your enemy is not weakness, General. It is wisdom." Morath turned to his advisors. "Prepare a diplomatic vessel. I want our best negotiator on that ship." 3 days later, Admiral Yanara's shuttle approached the human flagship. She was Selvian, chosen for her calm mind and sharp intelligence. She had studied human history more than most. She knew their old language, their customs, their culture. But nothing had prepared her for what she saw. The Eternal Vigil was enormous. Its hull was covered in strange metal that seemed to shift and change in the light. Weapons lined every surface. Scars from ancient battles marked its armor like medals of honor. This ship had fought wars that the galaxy could not imagine. Her shuttle landed in a massive hangar bay. Human soldiers stood in perfect rows, their faces hidden behind dark helmets. They did not move. They did not speak. They simply watched. A man walked forward to greet her. He wore a simple gray uniform with no medals or decorations. His face was weathered, his eyes sharp and calculating. This was Fleet Commander Elias Vance, "Admiral Yanara," he said. His voice was polite but cold. "Welcome aboard. I hope your journey was comfortable." "It was. Thank you." She looked around. At the soldiers, the technology, the quiet power that filled every corner of the ship. "I must admit, Commander, this is not what I expected." "What did you expect? Refugees. Survivors barely holding together. Your people fled into the void 3,000 years ago. We assumed you were dying." Vance smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "We did not flee, Admiral. Then what did you do?" He gestured for her to follow him. They walked through long corridors filled with crew members working at their stations. Everyone moved with purpose. There was no wasted motion, no idle chatter. These people had been shaped by something terrible, something that had burned away everything soft and left only steel. They reached a large room with a viewing screen that showed the stars outside. Vance stood before it, his hands behind his back. 3,000 years ago, he began, our ancestors detected something beyond the dead expanse. A signal, a warning from an ancient species long dead. They spoke of an enemy, a machine intelligence called the Hollow. It had consumed 100 galaxies. It was endless, it was patient, and it was coming here. Yanara felt a chill run down her spine. A machine intelligence? Yes, our ancestors made a choice. They knew the Velthari and the other species would not believe them. There was no time for politics, no time for debate. So they took the fleet and went to meet the enemy. Not to run away, to fight. For 3,000 years? For 3,000 years, Vance turned to face her. Generation after generation, we held the line. We learned the Hollow's weaknesses. We built new weapons, new ships, new tactics. We lost billions of lives, but we did not break. We contained them. We stopped their advance. Yenra's mind struggled to understand. An entire civilization, fighting a secret war for 30 centuries, protecting a galaxy that had forgotten them. "Why did you return now?" she asked. Vance's face grew dark. "Because our containment has failed. The Hollow is breaking free. We have done everything we can alone. Now we need the galaxy's help. But first," he paused. "First, we must reclaim our people. We must unite humanity again. Our scattered descendants need to know the truth. They need to know that they were never defeated. They were never weak. Their ancestors were heroes." Yenara understood now. The humans were not here for revenge. They were here to rebuild, to prepare for something far worse. "What will you do if the Empire refuses to help?" she asked. Vance looked at her with eyes that had seen endless war. "Then we will do what we have always done," he said quietly. "We will fight alone. But I hope it does not come to that. The Hollow will not care about politics or pride. It will consume everything. Belthery, Selvian, human. It sees no difference. Only pray." Yenara returned to her shuttle with a heavy heart. She knew the High Chancellor would not believe this story. He would see it as a trick, a lie to weaken the Empire's resolve. But she had looked into Elias Vance's eyes. She had seen the weight of 3,000 years of sacrifice. The humans were not lying. They were warning them, and the galaxy was not ready to listen. Ambassador Kethril stood near the observation window of Station Nexus 7, watching the stars in silence. He was old now, his blue scales fading with age, but he still remembered the stories his grandfather told him. Stories about the humans. Stories about the war. 3,000 years ago, the Terran Armada had fought against the Velthari Dominion. The humans were brave, but they were outnumbered. Fleet after fleet fell. Planet after planet burned. In the end, the remaining human warships gathered together and made one final jump into the void. They flew into the dead expanse, a region of space where no ship had ever returned. The galaxy waited for them to come back. They never did. Most believed they had died out there in the darkness. The Velthari claimed victory. The human colonies were taken over. Their children were scattered across 100 worlds, forced to forget their heritage. Over time, humanity became a footnote in history books. A defeated species. A forgotten people. Kethril had spent his whole life believing this story. Everyone did. That belief died in a single moment. The alarm screamed through the station. Red lights flashed everywhere. Kethril turned to see officers running to their posts, their faces filled with fear. He grabbed a young lieutenant by the arm. "What is happening?" he demanded. The lieutenant's eyes were wide. "Warp signatures, Ambassador. Hundreds of them. They are coming from the dead expanse." Kethril felt his heart stop. "That is impossible. Nothing comes from the dead expanse. Look for yourself, sir." Kethril turned back to the window. At first, he saw nothing but empty space. Then the darkness began to tear open. Bright lines of light cut through the void like wounds in reality. One ship emerged. Then another. Then 10. Then 100. The vessels were massive. Their hulls were dark and scarred, covered in marks from countless battles. Strange technology glowed along their surfaces, technology that Kethril had never seen before. But there was something he did recognize. On the side of the largest ship, faded but still visible, was an old symbol. A blue and green circle, Earth. By the ancestors. Catherall whispered. The humans. The ships kept coming. Dreadnoughts, carriers, destroyers. They poured out of the void in endless waves. The station's sensors counted them. 500. 800. 1,000. The numbers kept climbing. Station Commander Vrel appeared beside Catherall. She was a Selvian, tall and thin, with silver eyes that showed no emotion. But even she could not hide her shock. Ambassador, she said quietly, we are receiving a transmission. From the human fleet? Yes, they are broadcasting on an old frequency. One that has not been used in 3,000 years. Catherall nodded slowly. Play it? The speakers crackled with static. Then a voice spoke. It was calm and clear. A human voice. This is Fleet Commander Elias Vance of the Terran Armada. We have returned. Do not be afraid. We come in peace, but we will not be turned away. Humanity remembers. Humanity endures. Humanity has come home. The message ended. Silence filled the station. Catherall stared at the fleet before him. He had studied human history. He knew how the old war had ended. The humans had been broken, desperate, dying. They had fled into the unknown with barely 1,000 ships, most of them damaged. Now they had returned with a fleet larger than anything the galaxy had seen in centuries. Their ships were different, stronger. Their technology was advanced beyond anything he could understand. What had they found out there in the darkness? What had they become? Commander Vrel spoke first. We must alert the High Council. The Galactic Empire needs to know. Yes, Catherall agreed. They need to know that the ghosts have returned. Across the galaxy, the news spread like fire. Governments that had not spoken in centuries opened emergency channels. Military commanders pulled their fleets from peaceful patrols. Fear and confusion gripped every species. The humans were supposed to be dead. The humans were supposed to be gone forever. But here they were, emerging from the void with a fleet to darken the stars. On the bridge of the flagship Eternal Vigil, Fleet Commander Elias Vance stood with his hands clasped behind his back. He was tall, with gray hair and eyes that had seen too much war. Around him, his crew worked in perfect silence. They had trained for this moment their entire lives. Their parents had trained for it. Their grandparents had trained for it. For 3,000 years, generation after generation had prepared for the day they would return home. Vance looked at the stars on the view screen. Somewhere out there were the worlds where his ancestors had been born. Worlds that had been stolen from them. Worlds filled with humans who had been told their people were weak, defeated, worthless. He intended to show them the truth. Commander, his second officer said, the station is sending our transmission to the Galactic Empire. They know we are here. Vance nodded. Good. Let them know. Let them all know. Sir, what do we do now? Vance was quiet for a moment. He thought about the 3,000 years his people had spent in the void. He thought about the battles they had fought, the sacrifices they had made, the enemy they had faced in the endless dark. He thought about everything humanity had endured to reach this moment. Now, he said softly, we take back what is ours. The Ghost Fleet moved forward, and the galaxy held its breath. The colony world of New Eden had been under Velthari control for 3,000 years. Its people were human, but they had been taught to forget their heritage. They worked in factories and fields, serving masters who saw them as less than equal. They were told their ancestors were cowards who had run away. They were told they should be grateful the Empire had taken them in. Marcus Cole had never believed those stories. He was an old man now, with white hair and wrinkled hands. But he remembered his grandmother's whispers. Secret stories passed down through generations. Tales of great warships and brave soldiers. Songs about a fleet that would one day return. When the sky lit up with warp signatures, Marcus walked outside and looked up. His heart was pounding. Around him, other humans stepped out of their homes. They watched as massive ships descended through the clouds. Ships bearing the symbol of Earth. The Valkyrie garrison scrambled to respond. Soldiers ran to their posts. Officers shouted orders. But before a single shot could be fired, every screen on the planet flickered to life. A human face appeared. An old man in a gray uniform. "People of New Eden," Fleet Commander Vance said. "I am Elias Vance of the Terran Armada. 3,000 years ago, our ancestors left to fight a war in the darkness. They did not abandon you. They sacrificed everything to protect you. Now we have returned. You are not servants. You are not second-class citizens. You are human, and humanity has come to take you home." Marcus felt tears running down his face. Around him, people were crying, laughing, embracing each other. The songs were true. The stories were true. Their people had not forgotten them. The Valkyrie garrison commander tried to rally his troops. He ordered them to fire on the human ships. But his soldiers hesitated. They had lived among these humans for years. They had seen how hard they worked, how much they suffered. And now they saw the size of the fleet above them. One by one, the Valkyrie soldiers lowered their weapons. The commander screamed in rage. "I will have you all executed. This is treason." A human woman stepped forward. She was young, with fire in her eyes. "No," she said. "This is liberation." The same scene played out on dozens of worlds. Human colonies that had been occupied for millennia welcomed the Terran fleet with open arms. There was no fighting. There was no resistance. The descendants of humanity remembered the old songs. They had been waiting for this day. News of the liberation spread through the Galactic Empire like wildfire. High Chancellor Morath watched the reports with growing fury. World after world was slipping away. The humans were not attacking, not killing, not destroying. They were simply reclaiming what had been stolen. And the galaxy was watching. "This cannot continue," Morath said to his war council. "Every day we do nothing, we look weaker. The other species are beginning to question our strength." General Korax nodded eagerly. "Give me the order, Chancellor. I will crush them." Admiral Yanara spoke up. "Chancellor, I must advise caution. I have met Commander Vance. These humans are not what we expected. Their technology is centuries beyond ours. We do not understand what they faced in the void, but it changed them, made them stronger." "You sound afraid, Admiral," Korax said with contempt. "I am being realistic. I saw their ships. I saw their soldiers. They have been fighting a war we cannot imagine for 3,000 years. They are hardened in ways we are not." Morath raised his hand for silence. "I have heard enough. Admiral Yanara, your caution is noted. But we cannot allow the Empire to appear weak. We will gather our forces at the Korvath Nebula. 12 battle groups. 5,000 ships. Even these humans cannot stand against such numbers." Yanara's face went pale. "Chancellor, please. Let me try diplomacy one more time." "Diplomacy is over." Morath stood, his eyes cold. "The humans want war. We will give them one." The mobilization began immediately. Ships gathered from across the Empire. The Valkyrie sent their finest dreadnoughts. The Salvians contributed their fastest cruisers. A dozen other species added their vessels to the Armada. It was the largest fleet assembled in 1,000 years. On the eve of the battle, Admiral Yanara sat alone in her quarters. She stared at a blank screen, wondering if she should send a message. A warning. But to whom? The human fleet? Would they even listen? She thought about what Vance had told her. The Hollow, a machine intelligence that had consumed galaxies. An enemy so vast that humanity had spent 3,000 years fighting it in the darkness. If that story was true, then this war was meaningless. The Empire was about to waste lives fighting an ally they desperately needed. Yanara made her decision. She opened a secure channel and began recording. Commander Vance, this is Admiral Yanara. I am sending this message in secret. The Empire is gathering a fleet at the Corvath Nebula. 12 battle groups. They intend to destroy you. I have tried to warn them, but they will not listen. Please, I beg you, do not underestimate them. They are proud and foolish, but they are not evil. There must be a way to end this without bloodshed. She paused, then added one final line. You told me about the enemy you faced. The Hollow. I believe you. Whatever happens at Corvath, please remember that not all of us wanted this war. She sent the message and sat back in her chair. Outside her window, the stars glittered in the darkness. Somewhere out there, 2 great fleets were preparing to destroy each other, and beyond them both, in the empty void between galaxies, something ancient was beginning to stir. The Corvath Nebula was a beautiful place. Clouds of purple and gold gas swirled through space, lit by the light of dying stars. It had been peaceful here for centuries. That peace was about to end. General Korax stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Hammer of Valtherus. Around him, 5,000 warships waited in formation. It was the greatest military force the galaxy had seen in 1,000 years. He felt powerful, invincible. The human fleet has been detected, his sensor officer reported. They are approaching from the outer rim. Approximately 2,000 vessels. Korax smiled. 2,000 against 5,000. They are either brave or foolish. Perhaps both, General. It does not matter. Today, we finish what our ancestors started. Today, we end the human threat forever. The Imperial fleet moved forward. Weapons powered up. Shields activated. Every captain waited for the order to fire. On the other side of the nebula, Fleet Commander Vance watched the approaching enemy on his view screen. He had received Admiral Yanara's message. He appreciated her warning, but it changed nothing. The Empire had chosen this path. Now they would learn the truth about humanity. Commander, his tactical officer said, they outnumber us significantly. Our standard weapons will not be enough. Then we will not use standard weapons. Vance turned to his crew. Activate the void systems. Throughout the Terran fleet, something changed. The strange technology that covered their hulls began to glow. Energy pulsed through circuits that no one in the galaxy had ever seen. Weapons designed to fight an enemy far worse than the Empire came online. The battle began. The Imperial fleet fired first. Thousands of plasma cannons and missile launchers unleashed destruction across space. It was enough firepower to destroy a planet. The Terran ships should have been torn apart. They were not. The human ships moved with impossible speed. They dodged and weaved through the firestorm, their pilots performing maneuvers that seemed to break the laws of physics. When Imperial shots did hit, they struck shields that absorbed the energy, like water-absorbing raindrops. Then the humans fired back. Vance gave the order calmly. All ships, return fire. Weapons of light and shadow erupted from the Terran fleet. They were not plasma. They were not missiles. They were something else entirely. Something that tore through Imperial shields like they were made of paper. Something that ripped metal apart at the molecular level. The first Imperial dreadnought exploded in a ball of fire. Then another. Then 10 more. General Korax watched in horror as his fleet began to die. What is happening? What are those weapons? Unknown, General. His officer shouted. Our shields are not working. Our armor is not working. Nothing is stopping them. Then fire everything. Overwhelm them with numbers. The Imperial fleet threw everything they had at the humans. For a few minutes, space became a chaos of fire and light. Ships exploded on both sides. The Terran fleet lost vessels too, their hulls torn open by concentrated Imperial fire. But for every human ship that fell, 20 Imperial ships died. Korax watched his tactical display with growing despair. His fleet was being destroyed. The humans were cutting through them like a blade through cloth. He had been so certain of victory. How could this be happening? On the eternal vigil, Vance watched the battle with a heavy heart. He took no pleasure in this slaughter. These were not his true enemies. They were frightened beings who did not understand what they faced. "Commander," his officer said, "the Imperial flagship is still active. General Korax is alive. Open a channel." The view screen flickered. General Korax's face appeared, covered in dust and blood. His eyes were wide with shock. "General," Vance said quietly, "this battle is over. You have lost. Order your ships to stand down." "Never," Korax snarled. "I would rather die than surrender to humans." "Then you will die. But your crews do not have to die with you. Look at your fleet, General. Look at how many have already fallen. This is not a war you can win. We did not return as your enemies. We returned to warn you of a threat that will destroy us all." Korax hesitated. Behind him, his bridge was filled with smoke and fire. His officers looked at him with desperate eyes. "What threat?" he asked finally. "The Hollow. A machine intelligence that consumes galaxies. We have fought them for 3,000 years. We contained them. But they are breaking free. They are coming. And when they arrive, they will not care if you are Velthari or Selvian or human. They will destroy everything." Korax stared at Vance. He wanted to believe it was a lie, a trick. But he looked into the human commander's eyes and saw something he did not expect. "Truth. Why should I believe you?" he whispered. "Because I gain nothing from lying. I could destroy your fleet right now. Every ship. Every soldier. But I do not want to. I want you to live. I want you to fight beside us when the true enemy arrives." Vance leaned forward. "Make your choice, General. Pride in death or humility and survival." The silence stretched for a long moment. Then, slowly, Korax lowered his head. "All ships," he said quietly, "stand down. Lower your weapons." Across the battlefield, Imperial vessels stopped firing. One by one, they powered down their weapons and dropped their shields. The Battle of Korvath was over. Vance closed his eyes. He had hoped it would not come to this. But at least it was finished. "Commander," his officer said, "what do we do now?" Vance looked at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Hollow was waking. The real war was about to begin. "Now," he said, "we prepare for what comes next." The Great Hall of the Galactic Empire looked very different now. High Chancellor Morath was gone. After the disaster at Korvath, his own people had removed him from power. The Velthari who had ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years now sat in silence, their pride shattered. Around them, representatives of every species waited to hear what would happen next. At the center of the hall stood a new council table. For the first time in history, a human sat among the leaders of the galaxy. Fleet Commander Elias Vance wore his simple gray uniform. He had no medals, no decorations. He did not need them. Everyone knew who he was. Everyone knew what his people had done. Admiral Yanara stood beside him. She had been promoted after Korvath. The new Selvian government recognized that her warnings had been right. Now she served as the bridge between the old powers and the humans who had returned. "Thank you all for coming," Vance began. His voice was calm and clear. "I know many of you are frightened. I know many of you still see humanity as enemies. But I did not come here to conquer. I came here to warn you." He touched a control, and a holographic display appeared above the table. It showed a map of the galaxy. At the edges, stars were going dark. "This is the Hollow," Vance said. "A machine intelligence older than any civilization in this galaxy. It does not negotiate. It does not show mercy. It consumes entire star systems and uses the matter to build more of itself. For 3,000 years, my ancestors fought to contain it. We built weapons. We developed strategies. We sacrificed billions of lives. And we succeeded. We held them back." The display changed, showing massive structures at the edge of known space. Walls of metal and energy stretching across the void. "These are the barrier lines, fortifications we built to stop the Hollow's advance. For 30 centuries, they held. But nothing lasts forever. The Hollow is adaptive. It learns. And now it has found ways through our defenses." The display showed the barrier lines crumbling. Red dots appeared, spreading inward like a disease. "They are coming," Vance said simply. "Within 5 years, they will reach the outer colonies. Within 10, they will reach the core worlds. Within 20, if we do nothing, this galaxy will be consumed." Silence filled the hall. The representatives stared at the display with wide eyes. Some looked skeptical. Others looked terrified. A Velthri senator spoke up. "How do we know this is true? This could be a trick to make us follow you." Vance nodded. "A fair question. Admiral Yanara, please share what you have found." Yanara stepped forward. "After the Battle of Korvath, I led a scout mission to the edge of the dead expanse. We found the remains of the barrier lines. We also found this." She activated another display. It showed a recording from a probe. A vast shape moved through the darkness. Metal tentacles stretched for thousands of kilometers. Glowing eyes, millions of them, stared out from a body that seemed to have no end. The representatives gasped. Some covered their eyes. Others whispered prayers to gods they had not believed in for centuries. "This is one scout," Yanara said quietly. "One small piece of the Hollow's fleet. The humans have been fighting millions of these for 3,000 years. They have been protecting us while we forgot they even existed." The Velthri senator lowered his head. "Then we owe them a debt we can never repay." "We do not want repayment," Vance said. "We want survival. For all of us. Human, Velthri, Selvian. Every species in this galaxy. The Hollow does not care about our differences. It sees only resources to be consumed. If we fight alone, we will all die. If we fight together, we have a chance." He looked around the room, meeting the eyes of every representative. "I'm not asking you to follow me because I am human. I am asking you to follow me because my people have spent 3,000 years learning how to fight this enemy. We know their weaknesses. We know their patterns. We have developed weapons and strategies that work. Let us share that knowledge. Let us build a united fleet. Let us face this darkness together." The room was quiet. Then, slowly, Admiral Yanara stood and placed her hand over her heart in the Selvian gesture of loyalty. "The Selvian people will stand with humanity," she said. One by one, other representatives rose. The Korvathi, the Silthians, the Mirakai, even the Velthri, bitter and humbled, pledged their support. By the end of the hour, every species in the galaxy had joined the alliance. The new Galactic Council voted unanimously. Fleet Commander Elias Vance was named Supreme Admiral of the United Fleets. 2 weeks later, Vance stood on the bridge of the Eternal Vigil. Around him, thousands of ships from dozens of species gathered in formation. Human dreadnoughts flew beside Velthri cruisers. Selvian fighters escorted Mirakai carriers. It was a sight no one had ever seen before. His crew worked at their stations, preparing for the long journey ahead. They would travel to the barrier lines. They would reinforce the defenses. They would meet the Hollow head-on. "Supreme Admiral," His communications officer said, "The fleet is ready. All ships report prepared for warp." Vance nodded slowly. He thought about his ancestors, the brave men and women who had made that first jump into the void 3,000 years ago. They had known they might never return. They had gone anyway. They had fought and died in darkness so that the galaxy might live. Now it was his turn to carry that burden. "All ships," he said. His voice broadcast to every vessel in the fleet. "This is Supreme Admiral Vance. 3,000 years ago, humanity left this galaxy to fight a war in the shadows. We fought alone. We bled alone. We died alone. But we never forgot our purpose. We never forgot our home." He looked at the stars on his view screen. "Today, we return to that fight. But this time, we do not go alone. Today, the galaxy stands with us. Today, every species, every world, every being who values freedom and life joins our cause. The Hollow believes it will consume us. It believes we are weak, divided, broken." He smiled, and there was fierce pride in his eyes. "Let us show them how wrong they are." He raised his hand. "All ships, jump." The united fleet vanished into warp, leaving trails of light across the darkness. They flew toward the edge of the galaxy, toward the enemy that waited there. The long night was beginning. But for the first time in 3,000 years, humanity did not face it alone. And somewhere in the void, the Hollow stirred. It had consumed 100 galaxies. It had destroyed civilizations beyond counting. It had never known defeat, but it had never faced a galaxy united that it had never faced. Humanity with allies. The war for the future of all life was about to begin.